the tragic thing about this case is that Brian was conscious for 37 minutes.
The family of a Berea man and his 6-year-old son, both killed in a crash with a military vehicle in September 2016, have filed a federal lawsuit against the United States of America.
He gets slammed by this military Humvee. He's pinned. He's awake, he's conscious.
The lawsuit says the Army National Guard, under the employment of the U.S. government, is responsible for the deaths of 34-year-old Brian Barger and his 6-year-old son, Wyatt Bentley.
The Bargers are a military family, and nevertheless, they look at this and say, how is it that you let these young kids, really young kids, behind the wheel of this massive military vehicle on 3 hours of sleep in a rainstorm?
Tom Merriman represents Barger's estate and says Wyatt's mother filed a separate suit 2 weeks ago. Merriman says the Ohio National Guard is liable because Private First Class Jeremy Taylor was sleep deprived when he hit them.
Lights out was at midnight, and then they woke them all up at 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, and they got in a convoy and they drove from Portage County all the way out to Camp Perry, about 2.5 hours behind the wheel, 3 hours behind the wheel. They trained all day, and then rather than stay over the night as the plan required, they had them drive back to Portage County in a rainstorm.
The lawsuit says empty energy drinks were found inside the Humvee, and Taylor had been awake for at least 15 straight hours before he crossed the center line on Route 14 in Ravenna Township, clipped another car, and then slammed into Barger's Kia head on.
And for 37 minutes at least, he was conscious. And knowing his son has sustained some kind of catastrophic injury in the back seat and struggling to stay alive. And so it's a horrific tragedy.
Merriman says the Army's own investigation into the accident found multiple instances of leadership failure.
It's one thing to push soldiers to the limit when they're in a battlefield or a training field. It's another thing to push them to the limit and then put them on a civilian roadway on a weekend afternoon where there's families driving in their cars.